I just read a report that America is now in more credit card debt than ever before, more than $1.1 trillion. You know, my grandfather used to say, there's no stress like money stress, son. Well, are you feeling that right now? Let me help. You've got a friend in the mortgage business in me, and I've helped families just like yours save hundreds of dollars a month. Seriously, we've helped listeners to this podcast save up to $800 a month. At savewithconrad.com, we routinely help our podcast listeners consolidate all of their high interest rate credit cards into just one much lower monthly payment. Would you like to lower your monthly payments? Wouldn't it be nice to skip your next 2 house payments? Are you finally ready for some breathing room and peace of mind? Start saving money today with your friend in the mortgage business, me, at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket. And if we can't help you save some cash, we won't waste your time. You see, at savewithconrad.com, we don't say no. We say not yet, but here's how. We want to be your mortgage advisor for life. So find out how easy it is to finally get rid of your credit card debt once and for all, get a much lower monthly payment, and even skip your next 2 house payments. Let's find out how much money you can save for free at savewithconrad.com.
NMLS number 2129, equal housing lender.
Savewithconrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Grilling JR with the voice of professional wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. Jim, how are you, man?
I'm good, Connie. I'm not in Australia. I'm in Jacksonville Beach. So, and happy I am. So it's all good. Life is good. I feel good. I got a big appearance this weekend in Springfield, Missouri, one of my old stomping grounds for the McGirt territory. I was mentioning to you off the air that Springfield was our Wednesday night town back in the day when I broke in the wrestling business. Shrine Mosque is where we had our events. And so I'm going back there this weekend with the King and do 2 days of appearances. Should be good. And I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to seeing old fans and old friends and things of that nature. So it's going to be good. I like these appearances. If you want to book me, Dan O.
Well, they booked a nice Super Bowl this past weekend, Jim, and I think this may have actually been, since AEW started, the first time Tony Khan and Vince McMahon have been at the same physical address at the same time. It was a who's who. Everybody was there, including Vince McMahon, which was a head scratcher. What'd you think of the Super Bowl, Jim? A lot of people didn't have this on their bingo card, man. Patrick Mahomes just got shut down, and the Philadelphia Eagles are victorious. Jalen Hurts, an Oklahoma graduate.
Yeah.
In the big Super Bowl MVP trophy. What'd you think?
Jalen had good schooling, playing there at Alabama for Saban, getting recruited by Saban. Big deal. And then he kind of got knocked down. Then he transferred to OU to play for the lovable Lincoln Riley. And he did real well. He's a winner. And I was telling somebody the other day, when I first met him in person, he reminded me of the images I had of a young Jim Brown, 6'2", 225. He could run. He just was atypical of a quarterback. He was more of a tailback body, and I think we saw that on Sunday. His ability to run and miss and break tackles and things of that nature. So I was pleasantly surprised because I had picked Kansas City to win, and that didn't come to fruition.
Well, it was a big night. I enjoyed the Super Bowl, at least the first half. Maybe the second half wasn't all that exciting, but
I went to bed in the third quarter.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
I tapped. I really did. I wasn't angry. I wasn't disappointed, maybe a little bit, but I thought that the Chiefs would play a whole hell of a lot better. They just got their ass whipped. Their offensive line got manhandled, and the defense of the Eagles was stifling, to say the least. So all good though. I enjoyed the first half. Then I said, "Fuck it, I'm going to bed," and I did. And I went to sleep, and I didn't have any bad dreams. It just was the way it was.
Well, hopefully you guys won't sleep on Grand Slam. It's happening this weekend, immediately following the NBA All-Star game. It's going to be a big-time Saturday with some big-time wrestling down under. We've got Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay on the same team to take on Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher. We've got the Death Riders taking on Cope and Jay White in a Brisbane Brawl match. We're also going to see Harley Cameron challenge Mercedes Moné for the TBS Championship. The AEW Women's World Title will be on the line when Toni Storm and Mariah May hook it up, and one of the better AEW stories these days. And how about this for a Continental Championship match? Okada versus Buddy Matthews.
That'll
This
be
has
good.
a big fight feel this Saturday night event. I know you're fortunate not have to make that long trip over on the
long flight, man. Long flight for an old man.
but you are going to be tuned in, I'm sure of it, this Saturday night. What are you looking forward to most about Grand Slam, Jim?
So explain to me again, Conrad, how we can see this on television. Is it going to be on TNT?
It is. It's going to be on TNT and it's going to be on Max. It will be immediately following the NBA All-Star game.
I got you. Well, that'd be good. Good lead in.
Yeah.
And all that. So that's good. Hey, the card's loaded. I mean, there's no reason this card shouldn't be one of the best of the year without question. And I think it will be. A lot of good matchups. It's good stuff. So good. Well done, Tony Khan. It's good booking.
Good booking indeed. There has been some other news and notes I thought maybe we should hit before we get to our topic today, which is going to be the Big Show and how he went from being the Giant in WCW to debuting with the WWF as the Big Show. So we're going to break down some of his early run with Titan. But before we do, some of the runs of some of our favorite performers in Titan have seemingly come to an end. We saw the news that the Good Brothers have been released, as have the Authors of Pain and Paul Ellering and Sonya Deville and Cedric Alexander. And the names keep coming. And I'm sure for a lot of folks, this is devastating news. It feels like the end of a dream, but it doesn't have to be, Jim. And you know that better than anybody.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be.
Words of wisdom for these newly released talent now that they find themselves on the outside of the tent looking in?
Just stay positive and regroup. It's not the end of the world. More opportunities will come. What kills you sometimes is how these talents react to the bad news and how it makes them overtly negative, and that's not good. Stay positive, stay in shape, improve your game, and hopefully find yourself another landing spot. There's plenty of landing spots out there. It's just a matter of finding the right one for you. But it's certainly not the end of the world. I can say that.
It is going to be interesting to see what happens for so many of those talent. I don't know if you've seen, Jim, but there's even been a handful of AEW releases, and we've already seen what life after AEW looks like for Ricky Starks. As I understand it, he debuted on NXT this past Tuesday night. What do you think about Ricky Starks in NXT, Jim?
Well, he's a high motor guy. I don't know if he'll be the next Shawn Michaels at his size, but he's certainly going to. He has a unique future. He's got a big personality. So hopefully he'll do well and live his dream. It seems like the dream for a lot of talents is to make it to WWE and call it a day. And that's not where it ends. That's where it begins. So I saw the episode of NXT last night. Surprised to see Ricky Starks. Don't know how he's going to do. He's got a high opinion of himself, and he's got a lot of abilities. There's no doubt about that. So we'll see how it works out for him. It's never easy to get over, and hopefully he can get over and stay over as a top star. It remains to be seen. So let's see how it goes.
Well, something we're hoping that you guys will recognize as being over is less than a month away. It's the theatrical release of a movie that JR was the executive producer on. It's a pro wrestling movie coming to a theater near you. Of course, we're talking about Queen of the Ring. Let's take a look.
Oh, honey.
I had a bad dream.
Only dreams that we make come true are real.
We're gonna wish away all those bad thoughts.
1, 2, 3.
I promise you, my son, our lives together will be special.
Where's your little boy's father, anyway?
Mister, I ain't gonna marry no circus freak.
He done let me over this.
Billy Wolf! I'm really curious to see what you can do with her.
You barely know him. He's the only man that's ever believed in my dream.
We got a job to do tonight. You go out there and you wrestle your heart out.
We can headline arenas. I know that we can.
I want to talk to you about putting 2 of my girls on your card.
My main event is heavyweights and their name.
Why would anyone want to limit the spectacle of competition based on gender?
Looks like we're cleaning up every night of the week now. It's got me thinking, Billy.
I want us secure as equal partners.
Then do what's right for business.
Honor the deal and we shoot.
You will do what I say, or you will find yourself cleaning toilets in some arena after my show comes through.
Mom, all the tickets you two ever sold had your name on them, not his.
Mr. McMahon, how can I get a guarantee that my ladies can wrestle in the state of New York?
Let's show them how we do it in the South.
Come on, Mom, get up. Remember, 1, 2.
I'm actually the highest paid female athlete.
In Washington?
In history.
Pretty cool. I'm excited about this.
March 7th, be here before you know it. Can't wait to see it in the theater. Jim, I would be excited if I was you too. This is a big deal. This is a big moment in your life too, right here, is it not?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I'm very proud of that clip. The trailer is brilliantly done. It's a great story. It really is a great story of a single mom who wanted to be a wrestler, had to overcome all the divisions in her life. It's just and it's a true story. So I'm excited about it. I think people are going to really like it. Our audience should love it, and so I hope you guys will check it out and hit the movie theater. You're like me, you haven't been in a movie theater in a long time, so now here's a good reason to do so. So I think it's going to do well. It's just a great story. And I love the reality aspect of it. The reality side of it is just really good to me. So good stuff, Conrad. I hope you guys go see it.
Queen of the Ring coming to a theater near you March 7th. Big plans to go support this in the theater. As a reminder, if this movie is successful, there is a better chance that more movies, more adaptations in Hollywood about professional wrestling will exist. But if this isn't successful, well, this might be the last wrestling movie you see for a while. But that's the way it works, Jim. If folks are into it, man, we try to super serve that audience.
All right.
We need wrestling fans to go out and support this thing. And
absolutely.
Opportunity for more wrestling stories to be told.
Absolutely. That's a good thought. And that's good. It's logical. So I think it's going to do well. It's just too good a story not to enjoy, but you got to get in the theater to see it. So that's pretty cool. It's not direct to home. It's not a DVD thing. It's the real deal. So I hope you guys will check it out. It really means a lot to me personally. I think it means a lot to the wrestling business. So, but it was part of history that the business itself and the Good Old Boy Network would prefer you forget, because some of the story was the story is very disheartening. You know, how Mildred got treated was sinful, to say the least. But she had this overwhelming desire to compete and to be a star, and she was a star. She was making more money. The reason she had so much heat, she was making more money than most of the men, and they didn't like that. I saw that back in the day when the women would come into territory for their once or twice a year appearance. So anyway, I hope you guys will check it out. March 9th, I think you said, Conrad, right?
March 7th, I believe.
7th. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, March 7th. That's close. So
Speaking
anyway,
of close, this weekend is going to be here before you know it, and the voice of professional wrestling is going to be suited and booted at the Missouri Comic Con in Springfield, Missouri. It's happening this Saturday and Sunday. Fans also get the opportunity to see JR and the King together for some cool autograph and unique photo op experiences. For more information, head on over right now to MissouriComicCon.com. That's again, if you want to see JR this weekend in Springfield, make plans to go see him at the Missouri Comic Con. Snagging your tickets now at MissouriComicCon.com. All right, Jim, let's talk about it. The man, the myth, the legend that is Paul Wight. Of course, most of us actually see the Giant in person on WCW the first time. This would be 1995, but I think he's first on the radar of maybe some wrestling insiders in 1994. He spends a little bit of time at Larry Sharp's Monster Factory in New Jersey. He has one match in December of 94. And around that same time, I think there was like a meet and greet and convention where they were doing an NWA World Heavyweight title tournament that Dennis Corluzzo had been promoting in New Jersey. And there's some wrestling luminaries there that day, guys like Jim Cornette and guys like Jerry Lawler. And they see this mammoth human being walking around. When do you first remember hearing about Paul Wight in a professional wrestling capacity?
it was around that time. Yeah, he made a big impression because of his size. He was unique. He was different. And from his basketball background, that's where I first heard of him, was playing basketball for Northern Oklahoma Junior College in Tonkawa, Oklahoma. But he was recruited by Wichita State, and which is a good basketball school, by the way. And he was good. He was a good basketball player. So that told me that he had decent feet. Sound like Foster Brooks here. It sounded like he had good feet. He went from Wichita State to Northern Oklahoma Junior College to improve his skill set. And so that's when I first heard about him, him being a outstanding basketball player in his day.
Well, as the story goes, Hulk Hogan discovers him, wink, wink, a few months later and gets WCW to sign him. Now, if you ask Paul Wight, I think he would say that he didn't learn anything from Larry Sharp, but Larry Sharp took his money. But he does wind up getting signed by WCW, spend some time at the power plant. We would hear reports out of there that, man, the real life Paul Wight was just a freak of nature. The athleticism that he had for a man his size, he could do it all, including, as crazy as this sounds, a moonsault. I mean, at his youngest and perhaps most in shape, has there ever been an athlete like that in wrestling before, Jim?
Not really. I guess young Andre might compare to it. The younger version of Andre the Giant was pretty damn impressive. For those of us that follow the game closely and look at the old classic videos, Andre was pretty sensational. He could do everything. And of course, as things would go in pro wrestling, Andre doing everything meant that he changed his style. It was just unique as hell. So, but Paul was really athletic. That's the thing he had going for him. His enemy was his weight. So, I think that, in my opinion, he was overexposed in the beginning. I said that many times. He's an attraction guy. He's the one that you want to see less, because at that point, if that happened, he would mean more. And I think he was like a new toy, a big toy, but a new toy in the business, and he was overexposed, in my opinion.
I do want to ask you about Paul Wight, because this feels like this would have been a Vince McMahon hire all day. I mean, we've all heard how much Vince McMahon loves size, and we know that, well, Hulk Hogan has a lot of strokes, shall we say, in WCW in this era.
Right.
So WCW signs him, and I think his second match ever is going to be against Hulk Hogan on a pay-per-view main event. So in the cliched too much too soon, maybe there's no better example of that than Paul Wight, but how does he slip through the fingers of Vince McMahon? Like, I know you're not running talent relations at that very moment. I think that's still JJ, but is this a missed opportunity for Vince? It felt like he would have jumped at the chance to have him, even in 95.
I don't think Vince is probably totally aware of Paul Wight. You know, he quickly became aware, but I think that's probably the situation, Conrad. He wasn't aware. You know, when you're running the ship like Vince did, and you're micromanaging every aspect of your company, sometimes things do slip through the cracks. But if I had been in that role, I'm sure I would have brought it to Vince's attention very quickly, and we'd have seen where it went. But he was a no-brainer to be hired by WWE. Jerry Briscoe and I did a lot of recruiting with him. He lived in Florida, so Jerry and I would visit him at his home, and it worked out. At the end of the day, it worked out fine. We signed him, but he had the only issues I can say that he had, as I mentioned earlier, was his weight, keeping him in shape. He was kind of like Luca, or how great can you be? Well, you can be really great if you're in shape, if you're in game shape. And I think that's what we strive to accomplish, was to make sure that he was in shape. But he did have trouble with his weight, and that was problematic.
I do want to talk to you about a report that, I mean, if you were reading the Observer back then, you certainly got the idea that Dave Meltzer was in some sort of regular communication with Vince, because it felt like Dave was basically sharing that Vince was unhappy with the way WCW was presenting the Giant. Maybe he was thinking that they were squandering the opportunity with the Giant, and he needed to be booked more like a special attraction, maybe more like Andre was.
Bingo.
Do you remember Vince ever wanting a WCW signing as much as he wanted Big Show? Because I know there's a lot of talent who come over, but it feels like the Big Show, that's going to be sort of the apple of Vince's eye when it comes to the WCW side of things.
Well, Vince saw him as the next Andre the Giant. Simple as that. And so that worked out. How it worked out was how it worked out. You know, it's Big Show came in. He was in pretty decent shape. His weight was under control, and he was quite the specimen. But his basketball playing ability helped him with his feet, his balance, his foot speed, things of that nature. So, but Vince envisioned Paul Wight as the next Andre the Giant. But unfortunately, Big Show was not booked like Andre the Giant. He was booked like another wrestler, just a big guy. And you're right, Vince loved the size. He loved guys that would turn heads in airports, that type of thing. But Big Show was impressive. He made a great first impression without a doubt. And he had everything going for him. size, athleticism. You know, he looked like a giant. He performed like a giant. And I'm glad that we were able to sign him for Vince's sake, because Vince, he was a high priority. That's why Risco and I were on his ass early on about, you know, going to his home, watching him eat, all the stuff that you do as a recruiter. We did with Paul Wight, and got to know him. You know, he was an engaging guy, good personality, and an engaging dude. And I thought he was a can't miss guy, quite frankly.
I hope some veteran had his ear when he first gets signed up with WCW, and they whispered to him, "Hey man, congrats on making it down to Atlanta. Maybe you should rent, don't buy." And by the way, I want to do a PSA right now for anyone who rents. If you haven't heard of BILT, you're about to thank me. Earning points on rent is now a reality when you pay your rent through BILT. You don't even have to check with your landlord in order to start earning points that you can use towards flights or hotel stays, fitness classes, even your next rent payment. Let me break it down for you. If you're a renter, I'd start taking advantage of BILT if I were you. There's no cost to join BILT. And as a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and on your everyday spending. You see, BILT points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, even ones you've never even heard of. Did you know there's over 500 airlines and over 700,000 hotels and properties around the world where you can redeem your BILT point towards? Points can also be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experiences that only BILT members can access. So if you're not already earning points on rent, I guess the question is, why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbilt.com/JR. That's joinbilt.com/JR. That's joinbilt.com/JR. And be sure to use our URL so they know that we sent you. That's joinbilt.com/JR to start earning points on your rent payments today. I want to talk about what's in the Observer, because when he finally makes the jump to Vince, there's a story that comes out in February of 99. I want to get your take on, Jim. This is directly from the Observer. The WWF deal with Paul Wight was pretty well put together way back in December of 1996. Brian Wickens, who is Luke Williams of the Bushwhackers, was an intermediary to avoid tampering, helping set up White's agent, Jim Strausser, with Vince McMahon. White told McMahon that Strausser had the right to negotiate with him, so McMahon could avoid tampering, which would be the case with direct negotiations with White. The sides agreed back then to a 10-year deal at a little under $1 million per year. As best we can tell, the only part Hogan played in the deal was that whenever Giant was close to changing his mind, Hogan convinced him to take McMahon's deal because he felt McMahon could make him a bigger star. The fact that Hogan has a rep for doing what's best for himself, and he wanted White on the other side of a 10-year deal, as opposed to, say, a 3-year deal where McMahon could make him and he could jump back, seems to indicate Hogan is looking for another run at some point. So let's just start right there. How much do you believe of this story that, hey, we found a workaround to have a deal in place while he was still technically under contract with WCW? We already had it mapped out.
Oh, it's kind of confusing in a sense. But yeah, Paul Wight was booked to be Hogan's next opponent. I mean, somewhere down the line, Hogan was a smart guy. He just he knew what he was looking for, and it was for Hogan, looking for a big opponent that he could work with and beat, more specifically, as time went on. So it was, I mean, Hogan's smart. He's an old school guy. That's what old school guys and old school baby faces in a territory did. They would always look for their next victim, shall we say. And Hogan looked at the Big Show or Paul Wight as a great opponent and somebody new and fresh and somebody that theoretically, in the eyes of the uneducated masses, he could lose to. do it believably. And so it's nothing new. It's just the same old shit. And Hogan had a hand in that, and of course, him being Hulk Hogan, he impressed Paul Wight. Paul Wight thought he was walking down easy street because he already had an opponent, and that opponent so happened to be the biggest star in wrestling at that time.
Do you remember these sort of understandings existing with any other talent besides Big Show?
What do you mean?
Well, where a deal was in place in 96, like they had an understanding that, hey, when your contract's up, we got you. I mean, that is a conversation that's had in December of 96. He doesn't actually get to jump until February of 99. So we go all of 97 and 98 with the real life Paul Wight understanding, I'm only here in WCW for the next 2 years. I'm going to WWE.
Well, it's a smart move by Paul because WWE was more established and certainly had that Hogan element to some degree. So no, he was smart in that he was patient enough to wait for his opportunity, and that opportunity eventually came.
How does Luke Williams become the conduit for this? Bushwhacker Luke is the conduit for Big Show? That seems weird.
Yeah, it was a little strange, to be honest with you. Luke's a smart guy, been a booker, decent communicator, believe it or not. And he was just somebody that was a non-affiliated emissary. Luke knew where Big Show should be at the end of the day. And that was the WWE, which is where he eventually wound up. Luke's a smart guy, and he knew what he's doing.
Talk to me a little bit about the 10-year deal aspect, because this is clearly a different time and place, but a 10-year contract feels like quite a commitment. I want to remind everybody, he signs this 10-year deal in February of 99. And you may remember once upon a time, the other guy we heard who had a really long-term deal. Well, Vince McMahon approached Bret Hart, I don't know, 10 months after he signed that contract that felt like a 20-year deal and said, hey, I can't honor it. So the next time we hear of a really long-term deal like this, it's here in February of 99, a 10-year deal. At the time, what did you think of that, Jim? You're head talent relations, and we're getting a contract for 10 years for a talent?
Yeah, it's unusual. It's certainly unusual. I myself had a 10-year deal at my heyday there in WWE. Thanks to Vince's generosity, paid me a lot of money, and I was very happy to get it. It was very appreciative to get that offer and sign that deal. 10 years is a long time, and for us in the wrestling business, as volatile as it is, I made it work. I know it's kind of ironic. And it's an oxymoron because I came and went too many times, but I started with a 10-year deal, and that meant a lot to me. Give me some security in a business where security is it's not oftentimes found. So, but it was unusual. The key thing about Big Show was that we had to make sure we kept him in shape because he was injury prone. If he got too heavy, he would become injury prone. And that 10-year deal, if he's sitting home, meant nothing.
It's crazy to think about a 10-year deal, but that's the way it all happened. And we find that out, sort of the backstory, once he actually signs in February of 99. But back in the fall of 98, that's when we started to hear whispers that he might actually be leaving WCW. Dave would write this in September of 98. While this is not confirmed, this does come from people very close to the situation that the Giant is either very close to or has completed a deal to go to the WWF. He's been talking loudly about it for weeks, and some think he's doing it more as a way to get Bischoff's attention and make sure that this rumor gets started. He worked all the weekend house shows after missing Utica, Mississippi on September 23rd, complaining of a broken rib, although his action was kept to a minimum. The rumor largely stems from three things: his talk of a claimed $1 million per year offer and several recent threats to take it, which is quite a bit more than he earns now in WCW. The validity of which is speculative, though, knowing that Titan and McMahon like the knowledge or have the knowledge that they've wanted him from the start. Giant fits the bill, given that at the age of 27 and he's got the huge size. His no-showing TV on the 28th and talk from friends in recent days saying that he's going or is already gone. Well, it maybe is because it's been clear his WCW career has been stagnant for quite a while. I don't know his contractual obligation, but we've still heard he's got a few months left to go, and he's not able to just walk out. By the way, if he were to leave without dropping the tag title, do you think if this was as true as it was, and this is called speculation and nothing more, that Titan on principle would withdraw their offer, making sure he does the right thing for the business that made him? Me neither. Of course, Dave's having a little fun with the tongue in cheek of, hey, we're negotiating with a talent who's got a title. That sounds a little bit like Bret Hart. But when you know that Vince has his eyes on Paul Wight and you know that, he's wanting to make a 10-year play for him, is there any reservation in your mind about giving any talent a 10-year deal? And I know you said you had a 10-year deal, but respectfully, being a commentator versus being an in-ring competitor, a big money in-ring competitor, maybe that's a different thing. Did the administrator in you have any sort of uneasiness about giving a guy you've never worked with a 10-year deal?
Yeah, I did. But the thing about, you look at his dimensions, his size, his athleticism. There was nobody else in the business at that time like Paul Wight. And so he was unique in that respect. I can't, as I said earlier, a can't miss guy, and a guy that Vince coveted. And when Vince covets somebody, in my role at during that time, it was to get your man, sign him up, and so that's what we did. I watched him eat many meals, and I think he did it to help him, to impress us a little bit, because he was eating healthy, eating a lot of protein. So, but that was always the issue. It's always the same issue with big guys like that. How committed are they to getting in shape, staying in shape, and being able to physically perform at a high level? And we knew he had it in him. It's just a matter of, can we convince him that being in great condition and being leaner than not is a good thing?
It's interesting you're bringing up the leanness aspect, because Wade is even writing about that in October of '98, saying, in the last year, though, Giant has developed a reputation for being notoriously lazy, with his goal to do as little as possible in the ring while gaining as much weight as possible outside of the ring. So clearly, even in late '98, there are concerns about
issues.
Yes.
There are issues, and they were well established, and just get on the scale and you see what I'm talking about. But yeah, he had some issues controlling his weight. That's been problematic for Paul Wight since day one, at least in my opinion. And he's not the only guy that had issues with weight. There's several others over the years. So we constantly worked on that all the time. Weigh-ins. I weighed him a lot of times at TV just to see how he was doing, to get a measurement on it. He didn't like it, but so I think what it said to him was that we didn't trust him with his weight. And if the weight gets out of control, the downhill slide has started, and we didn't want that.
Yeah, I mean, with him no-showing some television, being sort of loud and proud at house shows, saying, I'm tired of this, Hogan's holding me down. He's frustrated that he's making around $400,000 a year in 1998, and he sees his peers all around him making a lot more money, and he knows he's going to be able to get that $1 million as soon as his contract is up. So he's itching to get out of here. He does wind up on TV on October the 5th of 1998, and that quiets a little bit of the buzz about him leaving down just a bit. But I do want to mention that it came out years later when Paul Wight was trying to leave the WWF and join the ranks of professional boxing, that during that disclosure, because that did become a legal battle, well, America gets a chance to see that contract. And we learned that his initial contract with the WWF, of course, we're talking about Paul Wight here, had what was known as a weight clause. And I know that there had been some concerns once upon a time about that. Do you remember putting that in, or whose idea is it to
mine
keep his weight under control?
It was my idea. I just seen it happen too many times, Conrad. You know, you got someone that's that extraordinary size wise. You have to have checks and balances in their contract to make sure that they hold true. In other words, I'd rather have a 350-pound giant than a 450-pound giant, and he could be at 450 quicker than a hiccup. So, but that's, yeah, I put that in there, and Vince agreed with it. We had to have some checks and balances to make sure that, and he hated it. He was annoyed by it, and I understand his annoyance, but it was just necessary. It wasn't personal, but maybe it was. But we wanted to maintain our investment, and that was how we thought it would work. That's how we thought it would work best, more specifically. So it was just a no-brainer. You got to have some kind of weight provision in his deal to keep everything straight.
Well, let's keep something straight right now. The most comfortable jean you've ever wore is the perfect jean. If you're like me, what we hate about jeans as big guys is, man, it can get a little uncomfortable down yonder. Well, not anymore. Not thanks to the perfect jean. I can be honest with you. I was a little skeptical myself, but the perfect jean has in fact redefined what jeans can be. More specifically, no more crushed nuts or saggy diaper butts, just pure, soft, stretchy perfection. Life's too short for denim that fits you every step of the way. These jeans move with you, whether you're chasing kids or tackling chores or just chilling like a boss. Over 400,000 old, young, big and small men agree. Imagine denim that's so stretchy, it's almost like yoga ready. Sharp enough to turn heads and comfy enough you'll forget you even wear them until someone compliments how they look on you.
Well,
what can you do in the perfect jean? Well, you can rescue stray cats like a denim superhero. You can man spread during game night, and you can break hearts and pull muscles out on the dance floor. And by the way, the perfect jean has 6 fits. You get a size range from 26 to 50, and you got links up to 38. Giving you more than 5,000 ways to find your perfect match. Whether you're thick or skinny or short or tall, no matter where you fall, the perfect jean has you covered. And for a limited time, our listeners can get 15% off their first order, plus free shipping at theperfectjean.nyc, or just Google the perfect jean and then use our code JR15 and you'll get 15% off. That's 15% off for new customers at theperfectjean.nyc with the promo code JR15. After you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Fuck your khakis. Get the perfect jean.
Yeah, those. I'm looking forward to trying those. Things like that are good for my road trips.
Hell yeah.
So comfortable, fashionable, and so give it a shot, folks. They're perfect. They are perfect. And I'll give you my report on those as soon as I get some.
Check it out, theperfectjean.nyc. Be sure to use that promo code JR15. Hey, so let's talk about where we are with WCW. There's a report that Eric Bischoff needs guys to re-sign. If your contract is coming up in the next year, he's not going to do much with you. He's having these sort of conversations with Chris Jericho and Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit and Juventud Guerrera. He's also having that conversation with the Giant. His contract is going to come due on February 9th, 1999. And allegedly, WCW makes a 3-year offer. They offer to bump him from $400,000 to $850,000. The following year, he'd be at $950,000, and the third year of his deal would be for $1 million. And allegedly, this is exactly what's written in the Torch. Many in the industry assume there's already been an under-the-table agreement between the Giant and the WWF. Seemingly, the WWF would have to offer Giant somewhere over $700,000 a year as a downside guarantee for over 5 years to get him to turn down WCW's big guaranteed money. The WWF, though, recently signed Rocky Maivia to what sources say was less than the $500,000 a year guarantee. And Hunter Hearst Helmsley, whose deal expires late next year, is currently negotiating for a renewal. His first offers have apparently been well below the $500,000 mark. So does the Giant, is he the apple of Vince's eye to break that $500,000 mark? So listen, there's lots of discussion here about what The Rock's making, about what Triple H is making, and where is this offer going to land? At this point, we don't know it's $1 million a year for 10 years. Did you feel like Vince was going to have to break the bank to get the big show? Or did you already know that, hey, Bushwhacker Luke's got it worked out, $1 million, that's the number, no less?
I think the number was $1 million, and I think Vince just was obsessed in getting his man. He saw another Andre, and Andre had great longevity. He was successful. Everything was good about Andre, and Vince thought this is a younger version of Andre. So I think it was a done deal. Like I said earlier, when Vince has his mind set on a talent, my charge as the head of talent relations was to get the guy signed and tell me what you want to pay him. I'll do my best to stay at that number, and we'll make it happen. So that's kind of where we were with that deal. It wasn't a hard negotiation. We had a number, we had a tenure, and it seemed like it worked out real well in that respect. It's easy to negotiate.
We got to ask, how does, as an administrator, when you've got guys who are over like Rover on your program, guys like The Rock, guys like Triple H, they've established what they can do. They're helping sort of be the flag bearers for the company in this era. And now you've got a guy who hasn't proven himself here in the WWF, and he's going to come in and get an even bigger offer.
Right.
Is there any pushback from any of those talent? Do you think that they're going to take that personally? Because we hear that a lot. That we even heard from Mick Foley before, that he and Steve Austin, they took it personally that they did not get the contract offer coming in from WCW that Mark Marrow did. And certainly it worked out for Mick. It worked out for Austin. But as an administrator, are you hearing any belly aching about the offers that are coming in for Triple H and Rock being much lower than what we're offering?
Yeah, a little bit, Conrad. But the thing about it we have to remember is that talents are offered downside guarantees, meaning that that's not all they're going to make.
Right.
So it gave them hope that if they got over and the house shows, the live events did well, that they would be able to make more money. Plus, they'd have pay-per-view bonuses as long as they were productive. And so we had an out in that regard. We had an escape clause essentially in that matter. It wasn't just you're on salary. I never believed in putting wrestlers on salary. They get complacent. They find their comfort zone. And anytime in the entertainment world that you find your comfort zone, you're at the wrong location. It just doesn't make sense. I can't remember who I was talking to. Maybe Chris Jericho at one point, where, he got a lower guarantee than he was making at WCW, but he had a chance to make a lot more money he stayed healthy and stayed booked. I felt very confident as the booker in that era that he would stay busy. And if we drew, which we hope we would, that he would be making extra funds. So he went from making a $350,000 or $400,000 downside guarantee to making over $1 million. But we had, as I've mentioned here on the show before, I think we had 21 guys one year that made 7 figures plus, $1 million plus. So it was there to make. It's just a matter of going out and doing it, getting it done. And I like that concept. I like that theory of how we manage that particular aspect of the business. So it was we're structured differently than WCW. You know, Eric had his guys. Those are fair offers. They're good offers, and Eric did a great job managing his company. But we certainly had we knew that we had an advantage because talents could make an undisclosed discretionary amount in the system. House shows, pay-per-views, merchandise, all these things, these ancillary contributions were very important, and they made guys a lot of money. So I'm glad we had that in place, and it helped us reduce our overhead as far as that's concerned. So this is a different concept. Our guys are not on salary, shall we say. So if you're content with your downside guarantee, then we had a problem because you didn't want the complacency. Just didn't work out well for you. It's like having a non-commissioned salesperson. I see car commercials in Jacksonville from time to time about non-commissioned salespeople. They don't get a commission, et cetera, and that bothers me. To me, that's not the right formula. So we had a good system in place where guys could legitimately make more money if they were productive, and being productive is never a bad thing.
Well, we should mention that the Giant is going to be 27 years old when he's coming in. And obviously there have been some concerns about his weight. It's even written in the torch that he's gotten up to 505 pounds. And well, that can certainly take its toll on your knees and your joints and
your back.
Well, maybe it's just not a good sign for things to come for him in WWE. But a week later, it comes out that, according to the Observer, nearly everyone internally considers it close to a given that the Giant is leaving, and that whether officially or unofficially, that deal is already done. He's already given notice that even with the huge offer from WCW, which is $2.9 million over 3 years, that he's leaving. So WCW having the Giant job for Goldberg on television using the jackhammer after Goldberg kicked out of the choke slam seems to indicate that the company knows he's leaving. Of course, the contract's going to expire on February 9th, 1999. It is interesting to see, you know, how talents handle business on the way out. And we've heard from before guys like Ric Flair who would say that, you know, he had a deal to go back to WCW from the WWF, but once he gets down to Atlanta, Ole says something like, well, after you just lost to Mr. Perfect on TV, what value do you have to me now?
That's ridiculous.
It's a little silly. I can't imagine someone not seeing the value in Ric Flair after he lost on TV, or even the Big Show. Does Vince give a rip what the Giant does creatively before he comes over?
Not really.
Yeah.
Not paying attention.
Gotcha.
It was easily erasable. So no creator did have anything to do with it. It's the wrestling business. You're going to put people over. And if we had heard that he was reluctant or refusing, more specifically, to put talents over, then we would have had an issue with him, with Big Show. But he seemed to be doing business fine on his way out.
You know, one of the things I wanted to ask you about was, you know, the guaranteed value of the contract with WCW versus a downside guarantee with the WWF. With regards to injuries, did you guys handle them the same way, or do you remember the WWF contracts having an injury out where if a guy was injured and missed, we've heard on the WCW side of things that they had these like 90-day cycles where, hey, we're gonna elect to not renew you based on your inability to perform. And so at any point, WCW could sort of exit those deals with a 90-day out. Was there something like that in place on the WWF side of things, or no?
Yeah, something to protect us. I think I can't remember the exact wording of it, but there was a clause in there and a language in there that encouraged the talent to stay healthy and stay in shape and get their work done. Nothing unreasonable, quite frankly. Nothing unreasonable whatsoever. So you got to take all these insurances and have the insurances that your talent can stay healthy and motivate them to stay healthy. So Big Show was no different. Maybe even a little more so because of his size and the potential for a guy his size to be injured.
Let's talk a little bit about the WCW roster. I mean, we know that Vince McMahon covets Paul Wight and he wants the Giant on his WWF programming. We also know that later in the year, we're going to see Chris Jericho make that jump. So clearly there's two big talent that Vince lands in 1999 from WCW. Big Show.
In totally different circumstances too, Conrad. Excuse me for interrupting you. Big Show was a priority, and Vince was not totally aware of who Chris Jericho was. That was me. I thought he was going to be he could contribute. And because I remember taking Jericho to Vince's house to meet with him about his contract and his creative and so forth. And I remember vividly when the meeting was over and Jericho left Vince's house in Greenwich, Vince saying to me, I didn't realize he was that short because Chris is under 6 feet, but goddamn, he was talented. And I just pushed it. I said, he can work as a babyface, he can work as a heel, he can work as singles, he can work in tags. He's had a long, illustrious career, so we can use this kid. His skill set is unquestionable. And of course, Big Show's calling card was just the other side of that equation. His size made him very desirable because nobody else looked like him. Nobody else was like Big Show. So he was the next, we hoped at that time, was going to be the next Andre. But we overbooked him and he was used too much. He was like I said earlier, Big Show was the new toy in the toy box. And instead of being used judiciously and gradually, we used him all the time. And it took a lot of his effectiveness away from him because he was overexposed.
I do want to ask you about, the WCW roster at the time. You said that maybe Jericho wasn't a priority. We know that Big Show is a priority. Was there anybody else on the WCW roster that really caught Vince's eye besides the Giant?
Not really, because Vince didn't pay attention to the TV shows. I wanted Benoit and I wanted Jericho and all those radical guys that came in. They're small, but goddamn, they could work. They're amazing workers. At that time, Dean Malenko was about as good as anybody in the world, but he was also 5'8". So I had to do a little selling there on that deal. But I could convince Vince that the fact is that these guys are, even though they're smaller in your eyes, they wrestle bigger than they are. And I still believe that. Dean Malenko is one of the valued member right now of the AEW team as a producer. And a lot of the great matches you see on TV have Malenko's fingerprints all over it because he's involved in laying out the matches for the talents and coaching them up. So And I looked at things like that because they can't wrestle forever. So when the wrestling days have ended, what do we have? Well, we have a coach that has great skills, that's unique. I thought big picture like that a lot. Vince, not so much. He was looking for immediate gratification for talents that he could use today, tomorrow, this weekend. So we had a little difference of opinion in that situation.
We got to spend just a minute and tell everybody something you and I already know, that anywhere worth going is worth going in good boots, and you can find your perfect pair with Tecovas.
Love them, Conrad. I love them. They're what a fit. They fit like house shoes.
I love them. Tecovas crafts quality Western boots for everyone, from generational ranchers and lifelong cowboys to guys like me, first-time boot buyers. Born in Texas in 2015, Tecovas makes it easy for anyone to find their perfect boot. And every one of Tecovas boots are handcrafted with over 200 meticulous steps for broken-in comfort that comes right out of the box. Whether it's a long day or a big night, your Tecovas are built to last and impress. And that's why Esquire loves them. They even wrote, "There's a reason we keep coming back to Tecovas." And man, this has been a game changer for me. I got a pair. I got my dad 2 pair. My mom's got a pair. John at the office, he's got over a dozen pair of Tecovas.
Get out of here. That's a lot of boots, man.
Dude, he can't get enough of them because you can make them work with any style. You can wear them with jeans. My guy wears them with a suit. And if you've ever wondered if you can pull off boots with your personal style, well, you owe it to your feet to pull on a pair of Tecovas. Plus, with Tecovas Best on the West guarantee, you get free returns and exchanges for 30 days. And right now you can even get 10% off at tecovas.com/grillingjr when you sign up for email and text. That's 10% off at tecovas.com/grillingjr. Tecovas.com/grillingjr. See site for details. Tecovas, point your toes west.
And they're great boots. They fit like I said, they fit like, I'm used to dating myself. They fit like house shoes. They're just from day one, they're comfortable and they fit wonderfully. So, and I've been wearing boots since I was a kid. So I understand a little bit about the culture of Western boots, and these Tecovas are the real deal. So give them a shot, folks. And I think you'll be very happy that you did.
Check it out, tecovas.com/grillingjr. So, Jim, we got to talk about some not so awesome news. This is a story that we've never discussed, and you and I weren't there, so we don't know what really happened. So I'm just going to read exactly what's written in the Observer here. The Giant was arrested on December 3rd, the Thunder in Memphis, on charges of sexual battery from an incident that allegedly took place the previous night at the local Hilton the wrestlers were staying at. The charges were dropped the next day when other wrestlers came up with an alibi saying they were with him and the police didn't have enough physical evidence. The Giant was accused by hotel clerk Minda Klitzner of coming up to her and saying, "Do you know why they call me the Giant?" And she responded, "Because you're so tall." And he responded with another reason, allegedly whipped it out and began rubbing on her. She was claiming she was going to file a civil suit after the criminal charges were dropped. Apparently, because of the Giant's size, the police were scared to death the next day when they were given word to arrest him. And they sent 24 officers to the Mid-South Coliseum to pick him up. Many WCW wrestlers went to jail to give him moral support, and it appears DDP is taking on the task of convincing him to stay with the company. So listen, this gets all the charges are dropped and this goes away. It's clearly proven that this was not a real thing. This did not happen. He was not found guilty. He's found innocent. All charges are dropped. But it's not the kind of news you want out there about your new signee. Now, remember, his contract comes up in February of 99. This is December of 98. He is 2 months away from the biggest payday of his life. And now he's got these allegations that, by the way, all charges were dropped. So I can't say that clearly enough here, but it has to be on your radar. And Vince can't be happy about this news.
He wasn't happy. And, you know, what have we done? And what kind of character does this guy have? could this be true? It could be true, but it wasn't. So it was a compelling time, to say the least, for Big Show and us. We didn't want to hire a guy that was a bad seed, but it was proven that he wasn't. So, and he had no more issues since then. So that told me that this thing maybe was a little trumped up and somebody overreacted. At least that's how I looked at it. That's how I wanted to look at it. But we did all of our due diligence. You know, we talked to the police officers, we talked to the Memphis people, and it just didn't make sense at the end of the day, which is why the charges were dropped.
It's such a crazy time for this story to come out too. I mean, right before he signs. By the way, we should mention there's other reports that come out a couple of weeks later that the Big Show, the future Big Show, the Giant as we know him at that time, he's lost 35 pounds. He's gone from 505 pounds down to 470. He's trying to get himself in shape before he goes to work for Vince McMahon. And allegedly, maybe there's been a change of heart. We started to hear reports that he's asking veterans in the WCW locker room, should I leave and go to Vince or should I stick around? And some of the veterans think there's no way that Vince can even come close to matching WCW's offer, which is $850, $950, and $1 million across 3 years. So $2.9 million across 3 years. But we know that Vince is going to beat that offer. It's going to be $1 million a year, and it's going to be a 10-year deal. But some of it comes down to, hey, how are they going to treat me? And it's written in the Observer that Eric Bischoff allegedly, well, here it is. Bischoff, consistent with his reputation as boss of WCW, verbally demeaned him because he could over the last couple of years, calling him fat and lazy in front of others. Giant has more confidence that McMahon will handle his career better in the long run and in a much more effective fashion than WCW. I don't know how much of that I believe, but clearly he's got his mind made up. Had you heard that Bischoff could demean talent, like calling them fat and lazy in front of them? I haven't heard that before. Is that news for you, or do you believe that?
I haven't heard that to any extent, Conrad, to be honest with you. That's not how you motivate people.
No.
Eric's too smart to follow that trail, I think. But it was just, you just don't do that, because that's not how you're going to ingratiate yourself to your soldiers. And he was the biggest soldier of them all. He had the potential to draw the most money. And for all your baby faces that you're building, he's the ideal opponent, because he always gave in the storyline a chance for the babyface to not prevail and be challenged. So that's kind of how I looked at that deal. But I had never heard that story about Eric demeaning talent. He's too smart for that, Conrad. You know him better than anybody. Eric does a great job here on the Ad Free Network with his podcast. So I just have a hard time believing that to be true.
I do too. Something I don't have a hard time believing, though, is that Bischoff now sees this as a priority and gets contracts extended for Rick and Scott Steiner, for Chris Benoit, for Eddie Guerrero, for Dean Malenko. They're all coming to terms for a contract extension. And, you know, I guess we're knee deep in the war now. He knows he's probably going to lose the Giant. It's written like it's a 98% chance that he's going to leave. And I guess Dave is sort of soured on the future Big Show as well, because Dave wrote, he may get liposuction done so he could start and tighten without the big gut. I guess it must be totally old-fashioned and out of date to suggest things like diet and exercise.
Yeah.
And of course, that's just Dave being Dave. But Paul had given interviews explaining how he really wasn't taking enough care in adjusting his diet in his 20s. As a reminder, my man has a growth hormone that's flowing through him that has allowed him to become that giant, the pituitary tumor. And when it gets removed, well, that's going to represent a whole new set of physical challenges. This is not, He's not just your normal human being at this point. So he's going to have to adjust and he's going to have to pivot. And that's something when people talk about Big Show's weight fluctuating, I don't think they recognize that, he had surgery done and that totally changed his body composition. He does it to extend his life, but things are going to be a little different after you have a surgery like that. Right, Jim?
Yeah. You got to watch what you eat. You got to exercise. There's got to be a plan in place. And you can't consume more calories than you burn. It's really simple, just math. And so he had issues with that as we talked about in the very beginning of this program today. That was always his biggest enemy, his pronoun boy, being Big Show. I watched a lot of sports, Conrad, as you know, like you do. God damn, I've never heard so many announcers use pronouns in my life. Even in pro wrestling, he hit him. He's angry. Who the fuck is he? Who is that? I don't get it. And I don't think it takes away from the broadcast. It's a lazy man's way of announcing. And I know going back and listening to some of my old tapes, it's prevalent. And I did the same thing at times. Not proud of it, but that's not how you announce a sporting event. Use names, use descriptions. Don't say he or she or they. It's like I said, a lazy man's way of broadcasting. Just don't do it if you're a broadcaster. And we heard it a lot over the Super Bowl weekend. Pronoun city. And it just annoys the shit out of me. So that's another topic for another time. But in any event, Big Show he always had that issue, weight. And I saw him here recently at an AEW event because he's under contract to AEW at this point in time, I believe. And he had lost weight. He looked good. And so he's finally getting his act together as far as his weight loss regimen and what he eats and when he can and how he exercises. So he's finally getting it, but it sure is late in the game for that.
We got to spend just a minute and talk about an internal memo that I guess people have seen from WCW. It's a priority list of talent that they feel like they need to re-sign. Two of those talents include Sting and DDP. They both re-sign here. Sting does a deal for 4 years at $6.5 million. DDP's around $900,000 a year. The Steiners are around $700,000.
Think about that. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Think about that, Conrad. It's what you just said. Sting at $600K.
Sting at 1.5 a year.
Okay.
6.5 million.
That's great. I thought I got confused there. I thought he was making less than DDP.
DDP's making 900. Sting's making 1.5. The Steiners are at 700. And the only two that aren't going to be signed that are supposed to be priority on this memo that comes out is Big Show and Chris Jericho. Mm-hmm. And I guess as the story goes, Eric Bischoff was trying to use his pal DDP, who has a relationship with the Big Show, to try to get him to stay. And it's written here. Giant, though, in the last week has openly told people he's pretty set on going to the WWF because he believes Vince McMahon can turn him into a legendary star over the next 10 or 15 years. But in WCW, he's going to be just another wrestler. He has aspirations to not just make great money, but make a name for himself. And he's convinced that the WWF is more likely to do that for him. He is just 26 years old. He's going to turn 27 as his contract is expiring. For comparison, MJF right now is 29. So Daniel Garcia is slightly younger than what the Big Show was. Hook, for instance, he's 25. I think he'll be 26 in May. So we're just trying to stress to you here just how young Big Show is. Did you share the same vision for the Giant in the WWF that Vince did? Did you think he could be this megastar, or were you not as bullish as Vince was?
I don't know if anybody's ever as bullish as Vince is on anything, but he certainly motivated me to sign the big guy. And Vince had these amazing plans for Big Show. You know, I lived through the Andre the Giant era. I was in territories where Andre would come in once or twice a year for a few days. I worked for Cowboy in Mid-South, for example. And he always drew. It was always a layup. Andre was he was a money maker. He sold tickets. He was the added attraction that people couldn't wait to see. And so I had a good feel for this whole thing. Vince sold me that he could make the Big Show this mega star that he envisioned, a la the Andre the Giant.
We know that DDP is going to be working with the Giant at Starrcade. This goes down in 1998. They go 12 minutes and 45 seconds. DDP, of course, gets the win. And Dave writes, the Giant regained that 30 pounds he recently lost. So whatever discipline we thought he gained with the thinking of going to Titan, well, that lasted about a week. And he would continue to write, they're hopeful in the WWF that when the Giant debuts in mid-February, he can be a major issue for WrestleMania. But there is concern regarding his conditioning, his discipline, and his attitude. And the fact that he started losing weight, then put it all back on, doesn't speak well for a change in life. And frankly, the WWF road schedule and demands in the ring are considerably tougher than WCW. So you're hearing Dave sort of write that there are concerns. Are you addressing any of that with him up front? Do you have initial conversations with Big Show? What can you tell us about that?
Several conversations regarding his weight. I stressed from day one how important it is to get your weight under control, to adjust your eating habits, to adjust your exercise regimen. That was an ongoing conversation. I don't know that we ever had a conversation during that negotiation period and recruiting period that did not include his diet, his weight, and his physical conditioning. You know, your body starts breaking down, and for a great big guy like that, it breaks down pretty damn fast. So, we had those conversations a lot, ad nauseum. I got tired of talking about it. It was frustrating as hell, to be honest with you. And all about, you can make these millions of dollars for years to come if you simply lose weight and get in condition. It may sound simple, it may sound elementary, but it's so important. It was the issue for him, and that was our biggest concern. Can we help him manage his weight and conditioning? Because once he gets a little older and his body starts breaking down, which it will, then where are we? It's too late then to make this thing work. And the fact that, you know, Shane McMahon was a huge Big Show fan. I think he gave him his name. But Shane just fell in love with the character because he believed in his dad's prophecy that Big Show was going to be the next Andre the Giant. Shane, like many of us, grew up as an Andre the Giant fan and knew what he did. He'd always, when he would play the Garden, he'd sell it out. And so, I don't know. It got frustrating, Conrad, because it was just one basic topic. Can you get your fat ass in shape? That's what we need. If you can do it, then we're golden. If you can't do it, then we got to go to plan B. And plan B is not one you're going to like.
Hollywood Hogan appeared on the Man Cow in the Morning radio show based out of Chicago, and he's going to do this interview. And when it comes up about the Giant, Hulk doesn't mince words. He just says, he's gone. We also would see Bischoff show up on TV, and he's going to start referring to Kevin Nash as the NWO corporate giant. maybe this is tongue in cheek because the WWF allegedly wants to call Paul Wight Titan, the corporate giant. That's the rumor that we read in early 1999. We know ultimately he becomes known as the Big Show. Do you remember it ever being discussed? Hey, we might call him Titan, the corporate giant.
Yeah, casually, but it's so hokey that it didn't stick.
Right.
Like I said earlier, Shane gave him the name The Big Show, and it seemed to fit.
Well, there's some discussion about the giant in WCW before he jumps. We should mention it. The Observer would say there's a ton of heat on Lex Luger and the Giant for the deal they pulled on the January 5th tapings in Gainesville, Georgia. Giant came out to the ring in jeans. He didn't even get dressed for his main event with Lex Luger. They got in the ring and basically did the Hogan Nash deal where Giant laid down and they both laughed. Fans went nuts because this was their 10-second main event. A lot of the wrestlers backstage were pissed off too because WCW wasn't even packing the 1,400 seat building. And this is going to drive fans away from future shows in that city. I mean, listen, I know he's young, but goodness gracious, if the reports are out there that you're hard to do business with, you're unreliable. I mean, goodness, this guy's shooting himself in the foot, it feels like, on the way out.
Absolutely, he is. It's bad judgment. I don't know if he's getting bad advice or he thought he was bulletproof. What? I don't know. But it was disheartening, to say the least, for the business in general. And if a guy will wear 2 coats of paint once, he'll wear it again. So I was very disappointed, Paul, on that deal. I mean, who gives a shit? Gainesville, Georgia, the Georgia Mountain Center. I've been there many, many times doing television. It's like you said, it's 1,400 seats. So who really gives a shit? And overthinking it. That's what I look at. Overthinking it. Just go in and have a good match, give the fans their money's worth, and call it a fucking day. Don't overthink it.
Well, don't overthink this. All-Star Weekend is almost here, and PrizePicks is the best way to win cash while you're watching your favorite players during the game and all the Saturday night events, like the 3-point contest. You can now win up to 1,000 times extra money on PrizePicks. You hear me? 1,000 extra money on PrizePicks. PrizePicks truly is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. So join over 10 million users and sign up today. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out even if your lineup isn't perfect. Yeah, you can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. PrizePicks truly puts their members first, so all their withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. And when my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. PrizePicks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. So what are you waiting for? And by the way, this is a lot of fun. Here's the question. Will Steph Curry get more than 5 3-pointers next week? You think Giannis can get more than 35 points? Well, cook up hot takes with your friends and win some real money this basketball season. You can run your game on PrizePicks. I'm looking forward to it, especially with the All-Star break here. And it's really simple to take a look at how much fun you can have on PrizePicks. You could do this. You could say, I think Jason Tatum's going to have more than 29 points, and I think Anthony Edwards is going to have more than 25 points. Maybe I think Anthony Davis is going to have less than this number of rebounds, and I think Luka is going to have more than 8 assists. It's that simple. So download the app today. Use the code GRILLINGJR to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Man, how fun is PrizePicks? Everybody's talking about PrizePicks at my house over the big game, Jim.
It's a cool deal. They do a good job, without question. They're the preeminent site right now, PrizePicks, and PrizePicks.com/GrillingJR is your destination. And And of course, after the All-Star game, we got a big AEW show on television.
Hell yeah, it's going to be a big Saturday night. Have some fun with PrizePicks. Get $50 instantly when you play your first $5. Just go right now to PrizePicks. Download the app PrizePicks and use that promo code GrillingJR. Hey, let's talk about it, man. We know that Big Show is going to be coming in, and we know that he's rumored to start on the February 14th pay-per-view show. That does become the case. When he's now on the roster, well, the apple of Vince's eye, the number one acquisition target is Chris Jericho. We know that that's your initiative, but Big Show does take a little bit of initiative before he debuts, and it's written in the Observer on January 18th that he underwent liposuction on his stomach. Now, I know that that's going to get some criticism online, but I want to remind you, the dude has changed his genetic makeup when he has that pituitary removal. So I understand, people have to do what they have to do for their health. And I also understand wanting to make the right first impression for Vince. Did you hear that he had liposuction done before he made the jump?
Yeah, I rolled my eyes. It's a shortcut, another shortcut. And watch what you eat. Watch what you consume. That's important. And we weren't hearing that. All the pituitary gland shit and everything else. And now liposuction, shortcut after shortcut after shortcut. And it was disconcerting, quite frankly.
Here's what's interesting. The Giant officially starts under contract on February 10th. And on that same day, they're going to have him appearing at the Toy Fair for the WWF. He's going to debut as soon as the pay-per-view or the subsequent tapings. But we're bringing him to New York for the Toy Fair. His debut with the WWF isn't actually on camera. I didn't know that until we did research here. Is this just, hey, man, if we've got a convention, we know we're going to have literally the biggest human being in the building. Let's have him at our booth. That's good for business. Don't just kick the can. I know it's getting ahead of what we're seeing on TV, but
I agree with that though, Conrad. I think you'd do the same thing.
Yeah.
Would book him there because eyeballs.
Absolutely.
And people talking. So, yeah, he was a featured act at the Toy Fair, and the Toy Fair is a big deal for any company. So he was, because those big giant action figures are going to be coming out sooner than later.
No doubt about it. Also coming out sooner rather than later is the woman who accused the Giant of exposing himself to her. Although the charges were dropped by the Memphis police the next day, she did turn around and sue WCW and Paul Wight for $500,000. When you hear that there's a civil lawsuit to follow, man, you got to be shaking your head like, damnation, this guy's just got the worst luck of all.
Yeah, well, bad decisions. Don't leave yourself vulnerable. And that's what he did in that respect. Even though he may be totally innocent and he was proven as such, it's still, you put yourself into a position that was very undesirable and not smart. Nobody ever said he was good at doing your taxes. He made some bad decisions.
There's a torch story about how much influence Kevin Nash is getting in WCW and how his influence is continuing to grow in WCW. And it's also been made clear that Hulk Hogan and Kevin Nash seem to respect Vince McMahon more than they do Eric Bischoff, to the point that people are saying Hulk Hogan has been instrumental in helping getting the Giant signed with Vince McMahon's WWF. And Kevin Nash has apparently confided in friends that he wants to return to the WWF when his WCW contract expires. He'd like to end his career as a gray-haired Big Daddy Cool. I mean, do you think that was always the plan for everybody? Like in the late 90s, wrestlers understood that, hey, you might have an opportunity to make more money in WCW, but you're going to have more fun and you're going to do wrestling the right way and maybe be a bigger star working for Vince McMahon. Was that the common thinking amongst the talent in the late 90s?
I think so. I think so. I think everybody had the ultimate goal of returning or being in the WWF and taking their chances, rolling the dice that it's a stronger company with stronger leadership. A lot of guys did not favorably compare Vince to Eric. Uh, Vince was the chosen one in that respect. Track record, if nothing else, was imperative and important. So I think a lot of guys, they may not tell you, but if they had their druthers, they'd rather be in WWE than WCW for future earnings and your your personality development, things of that nature, things that they perceived that Eric could not do for them. And Vince had a great vision, great track record, and I think a lot of guys had that same belief that he's our guy, and somehow or another we got to get back to his leadership to maximize our earnings. And quite frankly, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, maximizing your earnings.
I do want to ask you, when you're taking a look at the way we're going to debut him, it's the St. Valentine's Day Massacre pay-per-view. Usually, when we're knee deep in this Monday Night War, we want our big surprises to happen on TV. Well, the biggest surprise of all, the debut of the Big Show, happens on pay-per-view. The main event is going down in Memphis. It's St. Valentine's Day Massacre. It's Vince McMahon versus Stone Cold Steve Austin in the big cage. And there is a moment where Paul Wight comes up from under the ring to save Vince McMahon. He throws Steve Austin into the cage, and he's so damn strong that his strength causes Austin to just break through the cage. He collapses to the floor, and he wins. This is the way we debut him, and it happens on pay-per-view, not television. What do you think of that decision, Jim?
Not bad. As long as I don't know how much we advertised Big Show being there, if we advertised him being there at all.
It was a surprise. He's not promoted at all.
So Vince likes surprises.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's arguable. I might have put him on TV first and then build to the pay-per-view might have been a better idea in hindsight. Or it could not be. Surprises are good. Fans like surprises and fans like new. You check both those boxes.
The Torch would write, Paul Wight did not sit under the ring for the entire pay-per-view. He was backstage during most of the event, meeting and greeting the WWF wrestlers and staff. When the cage was constructed, a box was rolled to the ring and he was inside. He crawled out of the box right under the ring and he was undetected. If Wight looked thinner than a few weeks ago in WCW, it's because he is thinner. He had about 20 pounds removed by liposuction. He still needs to lose more weight in order to get into ring shape through his cardio workouts. But yeah, we've got him debuting, busting up through the ring, and he looks a little thinner, and they say he's had 20 pounds removed. But Dave Meltzer can't help himself. And he writes, they made Leon White a jobber because he couldn't get his weight down, and it was hurting his stamina. And then they went and signed Nelson Frazier, Paul Wight, and Brian Heffron. Next thing you know, they'll start firing undercard guys for failing drug tests. That is kind of hard to wrap your head around. We're seemingly pushing Vader down the card because he's gained weight, but we're signing back Viscera, Paul Wight, and the Blue Meanie. Do you think, with the benefit of hindsight, we were punishing Vader for no damn good reason here? Is there a double standard, or how would you reconcile that in your mind, Jim?
Well, we tried to encourage Leon to lose weight. I sent him to the Duke weight loss clinic, and he ended up gaining weight while he was there, sneaking out and getting chicken. So, but I don't think we're punishing anybody. We tried to explain, you can't do this. We're weighing you every week now, and you're gaining weight. So they showed no commitment, no discipline, and nobody was a bigger fan of Vader than me. I believe that he was one of the great attractions of all time. An athletic big man will draw money more often than not, but he showed no commitment to losing weight and getting himself in shape. And Leon was a great athlete, great athlete. He came up through the ranks. He played for the Rams. You know, he was under a lot of people's wing as far as that's concerned, and he worked himself into quite the shoot in that regard. So I don't think we're picking on Leon. Leon's well aware of what we needed, and the scales don't lie. So that's kind of where we left that situation. It's just too bad because we didn't get as much out of Leon in WWE as we could have if he had been a little bit more stringent on his diet and what he was eating and how he was training, because he was a great attraction without question.
We got to talk about, once we actually see Big Show on TV, he is going to be interfering in a title match with The Rock and Mankind in Birmingham. So The Rock's going to win the title with a little bit of help from Paul Wight. And he's out here wearing a shirt that says "No gimmicks needed." What do you think about the way we introduce him to the WWF audience? First, in the main event of the pay-per-view with Vince and Austin, and then the next night interfering in the world title match with The Rock and Mankind, but just wearing a plain black t-shirt that says "No gimmicks needed." What do you think of this debut here?
I thought it was pretty blunt, pretty accurate in that regard. It's very subtle. He didn't have the t-shirt as we saw there had a small logo on it. It wasn't full chest, and but it spoke volumes as to what we hoped he would be. He was the gimmick. His size was the gimmick, and that's how I looked at it. It didn't bother me one way or the other. It was a t-shirt.
I've always wondered, is there a different way? Because we're going to be examining sort of the stop and starts throughout his career as we continue to tell this story in the future. But it does feel like, of all the ways we could have debuted him, maybe this wasn't the best splash. And I know we're getting him in the mix. I mean, think about who we're having him rub elbows with: Mankind, The Rock, Vince McMahon, Stone Cold. But it just, I don't know. It doesn't feel like this was the highest and best use. We'll figure that out. But I wish that Magic Spoon existed back then, because I would have sat him down and all listen. We all need a little more protein. Magic Spoon is a nostalgically delicious cereal that tastes just like your childhood favorites, but without the sugar and with a ton of protein. And if you're already a Magic Spoon fan, I've got some big news. Magic Spoon has turned their super popular cereal into high protein treats. It's become my go-to snack. By the way, every serving of Magic Spoon cereal has 13 grams of protein, 0 grams of sugar, and 4 grams of net carbs, so you can feel good about what you're eating. The most popular flavors are fruity and cocoa, but there's so many more. And Magic Spoon's brand new treats are crispy, crunchy, airy, and an easy way to get 12 grams of protein on the go. And now, for the first time ever, Magic Spoon treats are available in grocery stores with delicious flavors like marshmallow and chocolatey peanut butter. But my go-to, man, it's the double chocolate. I double dog dare you to try the double chocolate. You're going to love it. Get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/JR, or look for Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/JR for $5 off. Magic Spoon. Hey, so listen, man, let's talk about,
Conrad, I want to say one thing about that Magic Spoon stuff.
Yeah.
I got it in my pantry. I use it a lot. And one of the things that drew me to it was this lack of sugar.
Yes.
I'm diabetic. The lack of sugar is really important to watch your sugar intake. And with Magic Spoon, that's a layup. So give it a shot. I like the Fruity Pebbles type I don't know which one you call it, but it's really good. So Conrad likes the chocolate. I don't disagree with that, but I like I really like the one that reminds me of I don't know what I'm trying to say, the oh shit, the Fruity Pebbles type thing with the orange and all the citrusy fruits, but no sugar in any of them. That's your key. That's what you want to follow. Follow that trail, and you'll eat healthier, and you'll be glad that you did.
Go try it right now. Get a great deal for yourself. Go to magicspoon.com/JR. That's magicspoon.com/JR. You'll get $5 off. Hey, so listen, we know the Big Show is going to make a big splash here. He's going to start an incredible run. He's going to become a bona fide Hall of Famer. It wasn't necessarily easy getting him here, but what do you remember about your first impressions of meeting the real life Paul Wight? Like once he's on your team and he's got your jersey and you're getting to spend time with him, what were your initial impressions of a very young 27-year-old Paul Wight?
Big personality, seemed to fit well in the locker room. He'd been in a lot of locker rooms through his basketball days at Northern Oklahoma Junior College and Wichita State. So he knew how to navigate a locker room and to be a good teammate. And I thought that he succeeded well in that regard. He was a good teammate and he fit well in the locker room, which was quite frankly encouraging.
We got to continue this story some other time in the future because there's no way we can tell the entire Big Show story in one episode. But with the benefit of hindsight, you know, when it comes to the great big men throughout the years, Jim, where would he rank? You know, obviously Andre is regarded as, you know, the greatest attraction of all time, but you hear people talk about Bam Bam Bigelow or Vader or Bruiser Brody. Everybody has their favorite big man. When it's all said and done about Big Show, where will he rank amongst the all-time greats on that big man list?
In that conversation, the guys you mentioned, certainly underneath Andre, nobody's going to top Andre because of his longevity and his productivity. But he has a place. He meaning Big Show pronoun boy, and he never has quite lived up to it, but he's close. He was important. He's an important cog in a couple of major companies, and always did good. He was underdeveloped because of his overexposure, in my opinion. But I always enjoyed working with Paul. I enjoyed being around him. It's just the fact that I wasn't a very good salesman apparently, and his weight loss issues. I should have more knowledge of those, and I didn't. I wish we'd have done better with him because he could have been a lot more viable if he had followed our direction and our encouragement of losing weight. And if we had stuck by our guns on his weight loss and weighing him in and things of that nature, he was very offended when he had to weigh in. That's the jock in him, the athleticism in him. You know, I can still do these things at more weight because I'm special. And we never quite got that point made to him. And that was disturbing. That's the only thing that kept him from being topping Andre. He was a better athlete than Andre. But he just, you know, we just had an issue with that his weight and his stamina and his health. And it was all for the betterment of him. You know, $1 million investment and made for short-term success. We were looking for long-term. And that was a great thing about Andre. Andre's career lasted decades. And at the end of the day, what got Andre? His weight, his size. He ate himself, like I said about William Refrigerator Perry, he ate himself out of a job. And that was sad and unfortunate.
Well, fortunate for us is we got a great topic next week. Another great what if in the WWF. Ken Shamrock, one of my favorite topics to talk about. We're going to be discussing the ins and outs, the ups and downs of Ken Shamrock through his WWF journey. Stay tuned for that next week here on Grilling JR. And if you haven't already, go hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell at grillingjr.com. That's your home for all things JR. Unless it is barbecue sauce you're after. Well, that's jrsbbq.com, and they got something for everybody over there. 2 types of sauce. You got main event mustard. You got Chipotle ketchup. You've even got the brand new hot sauce and the brand new book, Business is About to Pick Up. You can even get JR's other books like Slobber Docker. Or what about some JR action figures or trading cards? If you're looking for something autographed or something for the shelf or something for the pantry, Jim can help at jrsbbq.com. And as he always likes to remind us, it costs nothing to look, right, Jim?
And not a damn thing. It's free to look. If it's free, it's for me. And it's certainly grilling season, and we can help you out there. Also, they make great gifts, and, check it out. It's fun. When I was there last, like I mentioned this last week, when I was last in Oklahoma during the holidays, I signed a bunch of items. So you got a lot of things to select from that have been autographed. If that means something to you as a collector, then we can fill your bill. And Conrad, don't forget, I'll be in Missouri this weekend with Lawler. The Missouri Comic Con is going to be a big deal. My first time there. I always enjoy working with Lawler. Springfield's going to bring back lots of memories because, as I said earlier, that was our Wednesday night territory town for Leroy McGurk. So I'll be there on Saturday and Sunday, and hope you guys tune in and come on out and see us. We always have a lot of fun meeting the fans. Lawler and I have a lot of laughs. We have fun doing it, and we both realize that the days of us traveling together and making appearances together are probably somewhat numbered, but we're going to take advantage of every opportunity that we can. Missouri Comic Con is the place we're going to be at this weekend in Springfield, Missouri. So join us on Saturday and Sunday, and we promise you a very good time.
Go check it out. It's going to be at the Springfield Expo. It's February 15th and 16th. This is your chance to see JR or JR and the King at MissouriComicCon.com. That's MissouriComicCon.com this weekend to see Jerry the King Lawler and the voice of professional wrestling, good old JR. And next week, man, we're talking all things Ken Shamrock, and we'll be talking about what happened in Australia. Do what Jim and I are doing and fire it up. Immediately following the NBA All-Star Game, they're going to be doing their thing. Down Under, what a card it is. AEW Grand Slam Australia coming your way this Saturday night, immediately following the NBA All-Star Game. You can watch on Turner Stations or, of course, on HBO Max. And that'll do it for us this week, Jim. The Super Bowl's in the rear view. Football season is over. It's time to double down on some NBA and some wrestling. It's going to be a fun winter, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too, Conrad. And I'm a big NBA fan, so I'll be watching the All-Star Game, staying tuned, and then watching the AEW from Australia. The talents do well in these big shows, and they make a special attempt to be great on that night. I expect nothing less than that this Saturday night after the All-Star Game. Should be because the card is All-Star. It's an All-Star card that you and I both are going to enjoy. Some good old school pro wrestling Saturday night after the All-Star Game.
Check it out. AEW Grand Slam coming your way this Saturday. And then check us out next Thursday right here on Grilling JR with the voice of professional wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross.
Thanks for being with us, everybody. We appreciate your business, as they say. We appreciate your loyalty and your support. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Good job, Conrad.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little more about what adfreeshows.com is all about. Get early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts every single week, starting at just $9. That's less than 20 cents an episode each month. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Ad-Free Shows also has thousands of hours worth of bonus content and docuseries like Title Chase, Eric Fires Back, Conversations with Conrad, and The Insiders. Plus new series like The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a whole lot more. And you want to talk about early? You can't get any earlier than listening to the shows live. You can be a part of the live studio audience as we record the podcast. Plus, ride shotgun alongside your favorite childhood heroes for live watch-alongs, Q&As, and other interactive experiences every single month. Come on now, see for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans from around the world have discovered, that adfreeshows.com is the best value in wrestling. Check it out today, and hey, when you do, the first week is completely free. adfreeshows.com.